a person who identified as Black, it's live. Okay, great. Can stop shouting. Has simply been left out of the histories. Other factors contribute to why we don't know much about him. Geography is among them. To date, US art history, exhibitions, publications, other writings, including art criticism and academic articles and books, overwhelmingly privilege work produced on the East Coast. And Johnson was a California artist, the place where he spent most of his life. Another determinant of is the status of sculpture as a creative practice. When we go to museums and galleries, we notice that much of the work on display is painting. Sculpture is there, but not in great numbers. And I say this as somebody who's focused mostly on painting throughout my career. One more thing. As we start the overview, as I said, I'm going to present Johnson's work. I'm going to present Johnson's production in reverse chronological order. That is, you'll see his late career works first, and we'll end up with his earliest known production. I work in reverse order sometimes to unsettle the practices we see in exhibitions, or read in survey texts, or in artist monographs. First, these presentations unnecessarily train us to think teleologically, to carry our assumptions about early work, mid-career work, and final work into our understanding of what an artist is up to. Such pre-notions are problematic because they get in the way of us thinking about the process of a career and the mapping of success and failure. Second, the narrative of 20th century modernism is often scripted as a steady march toward figural abstraction and non-objectivity. That is to say, total abstraction. Today, most of us who study 20th century modernism in the Americas, as well in Europe, Asia, and Africa, know that there were many modernisms during the previous century. There were modernisms even where the figure holds steady. And there were artists who moved back and forth, oscillating between figural and non-objective practices. Sargent Claude Johnson was the first Black modernist on the West Coast to gain national acclaim. His life ended in 1967, a decade that we connect to the civil rights movement. Yes, yet his art then and during the 1950s, like what you're seeing here, inspires us to think broadly about categories such as Black art that emerged in the 1960s and seems to be having a new life today. Johnson was a public artist, one commissioned to do murals and building decorations in the San Francisco Bay Area during the New Deal period of the 1930s and early 1940s. Even after those years of government patronage, commercial clients tapped him to do work for their projects. For sure, Johnson was best known as a sculptor, and he worked expertly on small and large-scale projects, alone and sometimes as a member of collaborative teams. His oeuvre stretches across the realm of decorative, fine, and commercial arts, an aspect of professionalism that we know to be true in the careers of many 20th century artists in the United States, who explored any and every way to make a living. He made unique works, sculpture, painting, and drawing, such as the graphite and Conte crayon kind of productions, and he was also a printmaker. His lithography is in the permanent collections of several US museums. Johnson's oeuvre is distinguished for its experimental portrayals of people of color. He was especially interested in representing Black women, figures he often portrayed as mothers, holding, protecting, and otherwise caring for their children. Even as we recognize the theme of motherhood, many questions remain as to Johnson's impetus for presenting Black women. To what period do these female icons belong? Are they past, present, or future? Or are they timeless? Johnson, as we've seen already, occasionally created work representing people of color who were not of African descent. In these works, he demonstrates not only his interest in different physiognomies, but also in handling traditional and emerging technologies of making. He was a student of the history of art and of art making. He looked to past practices and he adapted them for his own times. His portrait busts of children are ennobling and also otherworldly. They resemble people he knew, and yet his interpretations of them move decidedly beyond verisimilitude towards symbolic forms and icons. Born in Boston in 1888, Johnson was the child of Eliza Jackson Johnson and Anderson Johnson. According to family history, his parents had moved north to Massachusetts from Alexandria, Virginia, in order to be legally married in 1883. His mother was a woman of African, Cherokee, and European heritages. His father was a white man of Swedish descent. Sargent Johnson was one of 7 children who would become orphans when their father, Anderson, a laborer, died in 1894, and when their mother died in 1898. The children were split up. Sargent Johnson briefly lived in Washington, D.C., where his mother's brother Sherman was living. Sherman's wife, May Howard Jackson, was a sculptor, and Sargent Johnson may have gotten his first art lessons from his aunt by marriage. We also think that Johnson studied art at the Worcester Art Academy in Massachusetts, because he left Washington, D.C., and returned to that state to complete his high school education. Johnson moved to San Francisco around 1915. We think he was drawn to San Francisco because of the Panama Pacific Exposition that opened in February of that year. There, he would have seen art from around the world. Johnson resumed formal study of art at 2 San Francisco institutions, A.W. Best Art School and the California School of Fine Arts. Although he did not pursue degrees at either school, Johnson took art classes at the California School of Fine Arts up until the 1950s. By that time, that school was known as the San Francisco Art Institute, which some of you may know. Gone but not forgotten. Great, great building in North Beach. Johnson first found success in the San Francisco Art Association's annual exhibitions. In 1925, he won the San Francisco Art Association's gold medal for sculpture for this lost work called Pearl, which depicts his infant daughter in a style that my colleague John Bowles has found to resemble Chinese Buddhist sculpture. The bust is evidence of Johnson's expansive studies of global art-making traditions, techniques, and themes. Here, Johnson works with a green Celadon-style glaze to portray his daughter Pearl's Chinese-American playmate. In the 1920s and the 1930s, the Johnson and G families were neighbors in an integrated, unredlined section of the San Francisco Bay Area city of Berkeley. In 1931, Johnson again won the San Francisco Art Association's medal for sculpture for Chester. Johnson modeled Chester like his other sculptures of the late 1920s and 1930s on neighborhood children. He also entered the sculpture in a Harmon Foundation competition of 1931. There it earned top honors and was reproduced on the exhibition's publication booklet. The Harmon Foundation exhibition photos and publications were circulated across the United States. Even though Johnson lived in California, attentive Black American artists and critics here on the East Coast knew who he was in the interwar decades. The sculpture Chester emerges from a simple block of stained wood. The result demonstrates his commitment to direct carving, an ethos characterized by attention to the sculptural medium and the creation of simple, stylized, expressive forms. By using unglazed terracotta, Johnson made the medium integral to the sculpture's finished form. He added color to darken the reddish-brown hue of the form, as if to suggest a color of Black people's skins. And he did so in such a way that the smooth texture of the ceramic and the grain of the wood remains visible, indicators of the artist's hand and in creating the artwork. Rejecting the narrative emphasis in academic sculpture, Johnson sculpted only the head and one hand of the boy to offer parts of the whole. As a Black American artist attempting to find new ways to represent Black figures, Johnson appeared to have drawn upon art from several cultures. He used an ancient ceramic medium known throughout the world. He added color in a way that might have been understood in the time as archaic. He stylized the figure's features in a manner borrowed from Egyptian Old Kingdom reserve head sculptures. And Johnson made a base that recalls the use of wood by School of Paris sculptor Constantine Brancusi, who himself drew inspiration from both West African sculpture and Romanian folk art. In 1935, Johnson exhibited Forever Free and won the San Francisco Art Association Medal of First Class Medal for Sculpture. And this was his third time winning that award. He split the prize with one of his former teachers, the Italian-American artist, Beniamino Buffano. Months earlier, Johnson's other mentor, sculptor Ralph Stackpole, praised Forever Free in the San Francisco Art Association's bulletin. The following year, Johnson's fellow artists elected him for the first time to the San Francisco Art Association's exhibition juries. Johnson's national and regional reputation enhanced each other. His reputation in California as a modernist sculptor bolstered his national status as a Black artist. It's also true that some of his contemporaries regarded him as a Black modernist sculptor. Some, of course, also sought to split the difference. For them, he was a paradigmatic contemporary Black artist, or he was a paradigmatic contemporary modernist, as if it was not possible to be all those things at once. As I said, Black women were among Johnson's favorite subjects in the pre-World War II decades. In the 1930s, he represented them realistically and abstractly. Forever Free depicts a mother holding two small children close to her body. Johnson has inscribed the forms of the children into the woman's dress, reinforcing the intimacy of their bond. Johnson presents the woman turning her head upward and to the side, as if she is looking with hope into the distance or toward the future. The title of Forever Free recalls the famous passage of the Emancipation Proclamation, the executive order that granted freedom to millions of enslaved Black people in 1863 during the Civil War. The key passage of that document, signed by then President Abraham Lincoln, was, quote, "All persons held as slaves shall thenceforth be forever free." In Negro Woman, seen here in the middle, Johnson offers a kneeling woman, but maybe not necessarily a mother. Because Johnson presents the figure as open-mouthed, I've wondered if the figure is meant to be seen in the midst of communication, as a stage performer, or as a worshiper singing praise. This sculpture certainly bears similarities to the Mexican modernist Diego Rivera's painted images of women, depictions meant to idealize, romanticize, and heroicize the indigenous people of Mexico. As a polychromatic sculpture, the kneeling subject of Negro Woman is a relative of the female principal in Forever Free. These solid-looking figures are advancements in Johnson's experimentation with coloring sculpture and his efforts to situate women nearer to the center of modernist iconography. Sometime in the early 1930s, Johnson embarked on a series of copper masks. He was inspired by the elongated shapes, gold decorations, and abstracted features of traditional ritual masks from West Africa. In 1939, a journalist who interviewed Johnson reported, probably informed by exactly what he said to her, the journalist wrote, "These are African heads, not from genuine African subjects, but from the various Afro-American faces he saw on his daily rounds in Northern California, where Johnson makes his home. By taking an eye here, a nose, mouth, or chin there, he was able to create something unusual," end quote. In 1933, the Public Works of Art project of the New Deal commissioned Johnson to create an architectural installation for the auditorium of the California School for the Blind in Berkeley. This was the first large-scale sculptural commission for Johnson. The project included a carved redwood organ screen and 6 lunettes above the side windows. Johnson completed the organ screen in 1934. It was installed at the back of the auditorium in front of the organ loft on the upper level. The screen was originally composed of 5 carved panels, 3 of which are now in the Huntington Art Museum's collection. The central compositional element features an abstracted tree with branches that radiate out like sound waves. 2 children in the center play along with the music, one reaching skyward while the other claps cymbals, a reference to music education, which was an important aspect of the School for the Blind's curriculum in the 1930s and actually continues today. Woodland animals in the center and side panels, among them deer, rabbits, and, oh, all right, okay. Woodland animals in the center, it's like the ghosts come back. Woodland animals in the center and side panels, among them deer, rabbits, and a fox, are drawn to listen, creating a scene of perfect harmony. Originally, 2 intermedial sections completed the 5-part pointed arch, each section backed with coarse fabric and perforated to allow sound from the organ to emanate. Later, the Federal Art Project commissioned Johnson to add a 22 by 8-foot carved proscenium on the opposite side of the school's auditorium, placed high above the stage. Some of the masks recall Johnson's of the early 1930s, while others appear to represent Egyptian, Greek, and Mesoamerican theater and dance masks. One grouping has a bearded Spanish figure in the center, while 2 images in profile appear Janus-like. There's also a Maya head on the left and a skull on the right, facing in opposite directions. The words music and drama are carved in the adjacent panels, surrounded by musical notations and a chorus of birdsong. The photo you see here is of the work in progress on the right side of the proscenium. This photo was taken in Johnson's backyard in Berkeley around 1937. Following the success of the projects at the School of the Blind in the mid-1930s, Johnson was awarded other large-scale commissions. The Vermont green slate entrance is notable for its biomorphic arabesque of sea life as an arrangement of taut and line and textured forms. I'm showing you the front and the back of that project, then was called Aquatic Park. It was supposed to be a public bathhouse, but there's a big story about how that didn't actually happen the way it should have. But now it is the Maritime Museum, still there in that part of San Francisco. John Bowles has noted that the carved entrance and rear balcony mosaic mural are among the handful of Cubist artworks that Johnson made in the late 1930s. As an example of other Cubist works by Johnson, here are 2 works on paper. Dorothy C. Is the epitome of a fashionable cosmopolitan woman of those times, body turned in motion as she reads a newspaper, cigarette smoke wafting in the air. The subject of Dorothy C. may be Dorothy Collins, a white American San Francisco-based art patron who was a supervisor for the Federal Art Project. The drawing over there on your right, Totem, resembles a West African sculpture made by Bamana artists during the late 19th or early 20th century. Johnson may have seen African art in San Francisco collections, as well as photos of it in a number of period publications, including the Howard University scholar Elaine Locke's essay of 1925 called The Legacy of the Ancestral Arts. In this 1925 essay, Locke encouraged African American artists to study African art because they had lost it as a result of the Middle Passage. The title of Johnson's drawing, however, Totem, would have summoned the image in period audiences' minds of the towering carved wood sculptures made by indigenous Pacific Northwest artists, as these were seen in ads and at fairs and at expositions in that time. Totem is as insistently vertical as a totem pole, but Johnson's rendering eschews the bulbous, robust volumes of Native American monuments that honor spirits and ancestors. The rectangular head atop his drawing totem looks like that of a non human animal, albeit one with its hair styled into two plaits. The suggestion of femaleness is advanced by the figure's tapered midsection and cone shaped breast. The simplification of form and schematic approach to presenting the body is reminiscent of School of Paris tactics, adopted from African and other non Western sculptural traditions, all deployed to make the body strange. In 1940, Johnson started a mural at George Washington High School in San Francisco. Sponsored by the Federal Art Project and the San Francisco Board of Education, this project was given to him to make a 180-foot, 85 feet by 12-foot mural. Titled Athletics, the cast stone frieze is installed on the north side of the school's football stadium. In the Huntington catalog, Dennis Carr writes that Johnson's design features images of athletes for various sports carved in a heroic style, recalling Greek, Phoenician, and Egyptian friezes. In this photo that maybe gives a better sense of the scale of athletics, we can see where it is on the football field. It's an amazing project and it's amazing location. I always say that when I go there, you have this view of the Golden Gate Bridge that would make anybody strap a football helmet on their head and want to play football. I also want to show you this photo of Johnson's progress on the work where he's here working on a clay model for the mural. In Johnson's athletics, the pictorial space is framed like a hieroglyphic frieze with track hurdles, sports equipment, golf clubs, and of course, athletes. Notably, Johnson depicts males and females, presaging a post-Title IX era of equal opportunity in sports. The passage of athletics seems to quote from a prominent passage also from Diego Rivera's mural Pan American Unity, which features a graceful inverted image of a San Francisco Bay Area swimming champion who gained fame in the late 1930s. So what we've seen already that Johnson worked large and small, and he worked with many mediums as he tried to appeal to audiences who he hoped would collect his art. In the early 1940s, he made works for tabletops. We can see here that the handle and the animal form on the lid of this teapot are reminiscent of indigenous art in the Americas. In contrast, the body has a modern oval form covered with an earthy brown glaze. With the cat, he joined the ranks of American artists making these kind of works for sale to people who maybe couldn't afford a large painting. To make something new and intriguing, Johnson found inspiration in ancient Mesoamerican and Egyptian terracotta traditions. Johnson collaborated with others who sought to sell affordable modern art directly to the public. Here in the pages of the San Francisco Chronicle in 1940, under the heading Today's Contemporary Graphic, and I'm drawing your attention here. There's a sales pitch stating, quote, graphic artist Sargent Johnson's lithograph, Singing Saints, one of a series of contemporary graphic prints being presented to Western readers by the Chronicle, contains a true lyrical feeling for the tones of Negro voices. It is available to the public at $1 each at the Chronicle's offices. Johnson returned to this theme in the 1950s and in the 1960s. He changed the composition to insert an arm and a mask-like presence, the meaning of which are ambiguous, and he turned to a different medium, enamel. With it, he created a color palette suggestive of textiles and visual culture that people would associate with African cultures, celebrated especially during the Black Pride era of the 1960s. Johnson clearly liked working with enamel. He mixed its powdered form with binders to create a thickened liquid that he could use as paint on a coated steel panel. When heated, the layers of enamel fused together to form a glossy, colorful surface. Johnson used this innovative industrial material in the era of abstract expressionism's rise, when New York painters were using house paint and putting unconventional mediums into their works. Johnson also used enamel for the important genre of self-portraiture. Toward the end of his life, Johnson created a self-portrait that seems to incorporate multiple concepts of the mask. In this painting, Johnson renders his head sculpturally. It appears hard and faceted, qualities more suitable to masks and helmets that cover the upper part of the body. Placed in the shallow pictorial space, Johnson's head and shoulders, like the background, are made up of sections, determined by visible outlines. The bright colors suggest that Johnson has donned a clown's makeup and costume. The strong reflections of light off the picture's surface offer theatrical effects, as if he was a circus performer, illuminated by spotlights. This self-portrait may be a way that Johnson sought to present the complexity of his multiracial identity and perhaps meditate on his life as a light-skinned Black man in the United States. During Johnson's lifetime, his influence on observers of African American cultural production was evident in a number of publications where his artwork was discussed, reproduced, and celebrated. So I'm showing you some images of pages from Opportunity Magazine, which was the journal of the Urban League, from Alain Locke's publication, and again, you see the brochure from the Harmon Foundation's publications of 1931. Johnson's work also inspired his African American creative peers. In 1945, composer William Grant Still published Suite for Violin and Piano. The instrumental piece's second movement is titled Slowly and Expressive, Sargent Johnson's Mother and Child. In the early 1950s, artist and educator Hale Woodruff cited Johnson's importance as a Black artist when he painted a series of murals to inspire students in the art department at Clark Atlanta University, historically Black university in Atlanta, Georgia. Entitled The Art of the Negro, Woodruff's mural represents Johnson person in the sixth panel called Muses. Johnson is depicted here at the far left of the work. The sculpture seems to be looking at a blueprint, Golden Gate Exposition, and one of his untitled terracotta genre sculptures is prominently placed right in front of him. And I just want to show you that. Getting used to seeing that, I think. Johnson continued to get public art commissions well into the 1940s and 50s. Consider Johnson's mural for the exterior of Dorman's department store in 1948. In the mid-20th century, the now defunct Dorman's store was located in Union Square, a historically active commercial hub that developers then were transforming into an upscale district of high-end shops and luxury hotels. Johnson's mural was newsworthy. The San Francisco Chronicle reported on the installation of this mural, saying, quote, it was the work of Sargent Johnson, San Francisco sculptor, describing him as a member of the San Francisco Mural Society and of the American Artists Congress. The untitled mural was succinctly described with both its design and its innovative industrial materials noted as, quote, a modern abstraction using enamel fused on steel panels as a medium for presenting free design, end quote. A year later, Johnson got a commission from the East San Francisco Bay city of Richmond. For this mural, Johnson pictured a white couple in mid-stride as they emerged from a wooded area to survey the urban grid and the surrounding waters of the harbor and San Francisco Bay. Both the blonde male and darker haired female are barefoot, a state that implies youthful innocence. They could be siblings, yet it's more likely that they are a romantic pair whose future will unfold in Richmond's built environment. Scaled to be larger than life, they, by inference, navigate the city's neighborhoods, enjoying the benefits of civic infrastructure and appreciating its green space and other recreational sites. In these ways, the duo embody the mural's title. A century after the California Gold Rush, these allegorical figures purposefully step into the legacies of settler colonialism, westward expansion, and capitalist transformation of land. Since his death in the 1960s, Johnson's oeuvre continues to resonate. In The Flag is Bleeding, #2, Faith Ringgold offers a two-dimensional representation of Johnson's Forever Free. She radically revises the iconic sculpture by depicting the matriarch with bloodshot eyes and breasts leaking rivulets of blood. The children that cling to the woman's skirt are also made strange. The legs of this boy and girl are spindly. Questions arise about these three figures set within the bleeding stripes of the US flag. Are the youngsters malnourished because the nation has failed to feed them and their families? Is the picture's situation here that a Black mother has no milk to give her offspring, having nursed other people's children, and metaphorically the American nation as a whole? Are Black American women being bled dry? Ringgold puts Forever Free in the service of a biting critique of historical exploitation and under-resourcing of Black communities. In conclusion, I'll say that writers dedicated to chronicling African American artist production and careers, the ones of the 20th century, consistently have featured Johnson in survey accounts published. California-based sculptors, scholars, curators, institutions, collectors, artists, including sculptors, have kept Johnson's name in a generative cultural discourse throughout the latter part of the 20th century and even in the years that have followed. The inclusion of his work in major group shows about the state's understudied artists, that is to say California, is significant. During the long 20th century, artists and cultural observers opined at length on the unique national character of American art as a whole. Yet relatively few of self-defined Americanists see any of these characteristics in Johnson's innovative, representational, and his complete abstract forms. They don't see it in his material experiments, nor do they see it in his public art commissions. Very few Americanists have entertained the possibility that Johnson may have been what Alain Locke predicted would happen in 1925, that an African American modernist would emerge as, quote, the artist of American life. In the 21st century, scholarly and popular publications that address American art as a deep and wide field of study, we can hope that Johnson's works will be more regularly contemplated. Thank you very much.
That what you shared with us was so extraordinary. And each piece that you showed us represented a different style of art. They were all masterpieces. What's upsetting is, that he is not part of the art scene. Now, you ended with the words you hope, but hope and prayer don't really do anything. What is being done for him to make him part of the art scene? Because I'll tell you another thing. I'm part of a group called APAG, which is, most of them are photographers and many are well known, not everybody. And what I gather as I listen to the group, and I've been part of it for 2 years, is that everybody's dissatisfied. They're not making enough money or they're not recognized enough. And many of them are well known, but nobody's satisfied. So I see it goes, to me, is living is you have to live and fulfill the satisfaction that you feel inside, not whether you're getting a lot of recognition or not. But when you have somebody like him who is so major,
You're all here. You're all here. You're all going to take this outwards, right? You're all going to talk about it, right? You're all here.
yes,
That's part of it. That's all we do as writers and curators and gallerists, right? You're all here. That's yeah, that's it. You're again, that's what the publications do, that's what the exhibitions do, that's what the archivists do, that is what the gallerists do. I mean, it's a team project, and I think that, we just have to sort of saturate the the waves, with our passion for what we care about, right? I mean, I'm so glad that we closed the shades so that we could get a better view of the screen. But I just love looking outside. And, it's not just what happens here in this room, it's what happens in the cab or on the subway, right? I mean, all of us in general need to talk about art, visual art in particular, with the same fervor that people pay attention to music.
Well, and congratulations to you and Dennis and your co-curator for the show at the Huntington, which was viewed by tens of thousands of people. So that's an important legacy building exercise, I think. Um,
Me too.
yeah,
But sculpture costs a lot of money to move.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah,
you very
excellent
much.
show.
Thank you.
And I did have a question.
Yeah.
Looking at his dates and knowing that he arrives in the Bay Area in 1915, which is still at that time really a hotbed of arts and crafts production, and in
Yeah.
particular copper work,
Yeah.
with people like Darcy Gaw, Harry Dixon, Dirk Van Erp. Is there a direct connection
I
that you
don't,
see, because the choice of the copper repose medium
yeah.
seems very specific to place to me?
I'll get your name when I step off the stage, and you can give me some bibliographic references. I don't know because John Bowles even thinks that even though we have masks from the 1930s, that he may have been doing it earlier than that, and so but we just don't have the documentation. I'll be interested in hearing what you recommend that I should look at though. Uh,
The masks certainly were influencing Nadelman and Picasso, and he generated his sculpture in that style. Perhaps it's what is your thought about
Yeah,
his
he's-
use?
Definitely looking. I will not share something that John has just shared with me recently about clear evidence of Johnson looking at Picasso's work, but of course Picasso is looking. Mm, who knows? I mean, I'm just based on what we see. Right, right, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. And I think what's the other important thing to think about is these masks are moving into a secular art space, right? So that's the other thing. These are not masks that anybody in the 20th century, early 20th century, in Western Europe or in North America would have known what to do with in terms of the ritual sculpture. They are appreciated for their formal quality, and that's it, right? And Johnson's part of that circulation.
I just showed you that Jacob Lawrence from
Yeah,
1943
yeah,
with the Cubist mask in the diptych,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
it definitely was signaling them three being together in
For sure.
poverty.
yeah. And you definitely know, Johnson is seeing mask in probably Albert Bender's collection in San Francisco. Jacob Lawrence is seeing mask here at the Met, as are other artists. Is this it or one more question? Okay, I'm getting the stop. Okay, thank you so much and feel free.